So in the last topic, we explored the power of emotions, that they come from the subconscious and influence our behavior towards pleasure, to get away from the pain and displeasure, and that this may not be conducive to our longer term state of well-being. Now, a lot of research has been done around behavior and the subconscious, and what they've discovered is that 90 to 95% of our behavior is subconsciously driven. So we are going to have a look at the brain right now. We're going to look at the 3 brain regions, and what we're going to do is we'll also go into a little bit around the subconscious regions of the brain and have a look and see how they influence our behavior through our emotions, as well as looking at the higher brain regions, which provide us with the awareness to regulate these emotions as well as the behavior, so that we can start moving towards a healthier state of well-being. So let's take a look at the brain from a real broad perspective. There are 3 main regions. They are highly integrated. You cannot separate them out. The oldest is the reptilian region. We call it the reptilian because we share it with the crocodile, and it takes care of our instinctive nature, and we'll look at that shortly, what it does in detail. Then you get the limbic region. This is all about emotions and feelings. And then you get the neocortex, the more recent addition to the brain. It's all about rationalizing and thinking. Now, the limbic and the reptilian, these regions are subconscious parts of the brain, and we're receiving information at high speed into this part of the brain first. It's coming through all our senses, and as it's received, traveling at 160,000 kilometers per hour, and there's about 400 billion bits per second. Some of it is then processed into the higher parts of the brain, into the neocortex region, and we're talking about only 2,000 bits per second, traveling at about 160 to 190 kilometers. So you can just see how much is received by the subconscious that is not really being received by the higher brain, and we'll talk about this much later on. So let's talk about the reptilian region. Well, this manages our vital functions. We don't have to think about it. It's highly instinctive. It manages our breathing for us, our hunger, our thirst, our digestive system, just to name a few. I mean, can you imagine if we had to remember to breathe, we wouldn't make it through the next hour. Now, it's also in charge of our primal instincts to survive, and it does this through the 4 F's that we spoke about in the previous topic. So when it comes to fight, flight, and freeze, what it does is it has the memory of the saber-toothed tiger deeply imprinted within this part of the brain from our history. But however, in the modern world, it can kind of perceive that the saber-toothed tiger is around every corner, and it'll see it, for example, in maybe that unkind boss, or the ex-spouse, or that guy in the traffic who drives on the yellow line and pushes in front of you, or even that uncertain future. So it doesn't think, it's purely instinctive, and it purely reacts to the saber-toothed tiger, or the symbolic saber-toothed tiger. But we'll look at this in a lot more detail in the next module. Now let's look at the limbic region. Well, this is a highly complex structure, and it's responsible for a lot of things. We're going to just look at some aspects of it. Well, it's responsible for controlling and regulating our emotions as well as our behavior and our response to them. It manages our motivation and our memory around these emotions. So what it does do, broadly speaking, is it motivates us towards pleasure because it kind of sees this as ensuring our survival, and steers us away from the pain or displeasure because it perceives this as a threat to our survival. So let's look at a practical example. When I was a child, maybe I ate some chocolate cake, and what happens is the subconscious part of the brain registers pleasure because this chocolate cake has sugar and carbohydrates within it, and those sugar and carbohydrates will ensure my survival by giving me the required energy that could possibly get me through potential famine in the future. Now, it stores this pleasure as memory, and later on in life, maybe I have a breakup with someone and I'm feeling this rejection, and there's this pain and displeasure that comes with that rejection, and this deep subconscious part of the brain goes, let's get you away from this displeasure and pain. Do you remember when you ate that chocolate cake, you had pleasure? So through an urge, what it does is it urges us to go and eat this chocolate cake to numb the pain of the experience we are having. And without awareness, over time, we can eat a lot of this chocolate cake, but what can happen is the famine doesn't happen, and we are storing this energy, And when we look in the mirror down the line, we notice that we've put on weight and we feel more rejection. We are now rejecting ourselves. So whatever we were running away from, we are running towards. And as we feel this rejection, we go and eat more chocolate cake. So you can see it goes into this downward spiral, which is not conducive to a healthier state of well-being. Now we can replace that chocolate cake with anything. You can replace it with retail therapy. When you're feeling sad, you go out and you buy some stuff, you feel good, but 3 days later you have buyer's remorse. But it doesn't necessarily mean everything that's happening within the subconscious is not conducive to our healthier well-being. We might have the urge to go and achieve a goal or to do something with our lives, and this could be more conducive to our healthier well-being. But for now, it's about having the awareness to pay attention to these urges that come from this deep subconscious. These urges can then be translated maybe into a thought, but as we pay attention to them, we can then be curious and ask ourselves, are they conducive to a longer state of well-being, or is it going to negatively affect me in the long run? Now, when you're becoming more aware of your emotions, paying attention to the urge and being curious around them, you're working with your neocortex region. This is involved in higher brain functions, which includes cognition and sensory perception. So what is cognition? Well, this is where we acquire knowledge and understand it through conscious thought, reasoning, logic, or even past experiences. So it's pretty much what you're doing right now as you listen to me speak. And then you get sensory perception. Well, this is where we process our experiences or stimuli from the environment by using conscious thought and reasoning. Now, within this region is the prefrontal cortex, the executive center. This sits just behind your forehead, and what this region includes is the ability to make decisions or planning around our goals, just to name a few. Now, we will be using this region to change the lenses through which we process our experiences from the environment. So, for example, when we change the meaning to change the feeling, we are using this part of the brain. We'll be working with that as a tool much later on. And then within this executive center, you've got the left prefrontal cortex. Well, this is the left part just behind your forehead. When this is active, we are experiencing more emotional balance, more positive states, and we'll also recover from stress way more quicker. So we'll be working with some tools that stimulate these higher brain regions, more specifically the left prefrontal cortex. And in the next topic, we'll be working with emotional agility. We'll provide you with some tools to begin the process. Now, as we finish off this topic, I leave you with a wonderful quote. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So I will see you in the next topic, and until then, take care and stay aware.